I very much struggled with acne and rosacea as well. And I knew that there had to be a connection between the gut and the skin. The one thing about gut work is we're not just affecting the skin, we're affecting all metabolic health. So cleaning up the gut will really influence a person positively in many other ways, not just the skin or not just digestion. It can be energy, it can be cardiovascular, it can be all sorts of other systems.
Hello, my dears, and welcome back to another episode of the Nutrient Dense podcast. I'm super excited for today's episode because we have Marley from Team Han on the episode with us. Marley is really our resident skin expert. I like to call her the skin queen, and she really takes care of all of our clients in our Clear Skin program. So we have her on today because we will be discussing how certain gut imbalances really drive hormonal acne. So if you have ever been told that your acne is hormonal, or you just think that you are dealing with this hormonal acne, this is really the episode for you. So what I always say when people, they'll send us emails and they'll ask us questions wondering if we do hormone testing and do we address hormones with our clients and all of that good stuff. And I just always like to point out that hormones are really responding to other inputs. They are almost never the root cause themselves. So even when we're looking at something like cortisol, for example, if you have high cortisol, the cortisol is not really the problem, right? What is underneath? What's that deeper root cause to the high cortisol? Oftentimes we're looking at chronic stress. We could be looking at undereating, overtraining, circadian rhythm dysregulation. Sometimes even gut infections can be driving up that cortisol or those cortisol levels as well. So my point is here is we always really need to peel that onion and dig deeper and understand what is contributing to that hormonal imbalance. And cortisol is really just one hormone, right? We've got so many hormones that can play a role in our digestive health and our overall health, and of course our skin health as well. So if you are dealing with hormonal acne, we have to ask why. Which hormones are contributing to your acne in the first place? And then what are those underlying root causes of the hormonal imbalances themselves? So by the end of this episode, you will understand exactly how your gut influences your hormones, how that shows up on your skin, and then some of the key steps to start really clearing your skin from the inside out. So welcome to the show, Marley.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, we're excited to have you on. So like I said, you guys, I have Marley from Team Han on, the skin queen is what I call her. So Marley, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit of kind of info about your background and also how you ended up getting into this skin work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a master's degree in nutrition from Bastyr University. I always knew that I wanted to go and specialize in gut health, and I believed that there was a connection between the gut and skin. I very much struggled with acne and rosacea as well, and I knew that there had to be a connection between the gut and the skin. So I ended up getting a esthetician license. So I'm also a licensed esthetician. And then I also studied under Dr. Julie Greenberg. She is a naturopathic doctor specializing in root cause dermatology. And she really helped kind of see the links between gut health and skin health. So I've been doing this work for about a decade. And yeah, it's sort of my passion project. And I did experiment on myself, of course. So I gave myself functional medicine or functional stool testing and found that I had a lot of gut dysbiosis and imbalances in the gut, worked on correcting those, and my skin really did clear up. I really saw improvement in it. So I am a testament to this work that we're doing.
Yeah, I always say to people when I'm chatting with them, I'm like, you should just see Marley's skin now because she's got the best skin of any of us. and she was the one that had the acne and the rosacea. So this work works. So yeah, I mean, there's so much to cover in today's episode. What I want to get into is the gut and hormone connection a bit. But before we dive into that, we see, and you really walk all of these clients in our Clear Skin program through this step-by-step process to repairing, like really clearing the skin through the avenue of the gut, and also looking at some hormones and looking at liver function, things like that. But when you see these people, these mostly women, come in to work with us, what do you see them having kind of tried before getting to us? And when you're looking at their notes, like what is most commonly missed by the time they find us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people go to the topicals first because they feel like that's kind of where the key lies. But I really think it lies a lot deeper. Certainly there are great topicals out there. And if you work in the skin, if you do the skin program with us, I do have topical recommendations that I give people. I think that's an important piece, but it's not really getting to the root cause. And then I also see a lot of women come in restricting diets because they think maybe it's a food sensitivity that's contributing to their skin issues. And when I see that, I really try to tell them that it's more about the terrain in which the food is coming that's the issue than the food itself. So we really need to look under the hood, look deeper, and see what the terrain of the gut microbiome is like and why the food maybe is causing, that you think is causing the issue, is causing the issue. It's not necessarily the food. It's probably what's going on in the gut.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because I had a call with someone the other day and there's another company out there that is pretty popular, right? And their like methodology is removing gluten, dairy, eggs, maybe sugar. And that's what they have you do for like a month or two without really digging deeper into the gut at all. Or this other, I mean, I think they have a supplement for like quote unquote hormone balancing, but like, once again, what does that mean? And is that addressing your root cause? So I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, when we're looking at gluten and dairy and eggs, like, do you see those being root cause drivers of acne in most people, or you think we have to dig deeper?
We definitely have to dig deeper. Sometimes I will, put someone on some elimination in the beginning just to kind of calm down overall inflammation. Yeah. I mean, I can't deny the research. Research across the board really does say that dairy does kick up acne. And I think it's probably because if you're thinking about dairy, you're thinking about it pushing up something called IGF-1 or insulin growth factor 1, which does increase this sort of hormonal cascade. So it can play a role. My hope is not to have you eliminate all food, all these foods for long term. It's just sort of this temporary adjunct therapy while we're working deeper on gut stuff.
Yeah. We kind of do the same thing with digestive clients,
Absolutely.
Right? So yeah, just kind of like decreasing the inflammation. I know that sounds like an overgeneralized kind of broad term, but how can we take out these big hitters? That's what I call them, like these big hitters that just cause a lot of irritation for most people, to quell that inflammation, quell that reaction while we work on addressing the root. So really the same goes for the skin for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I know before we started recording, we talked about like a couple of these kind of main buckets, I guess, or avenues through which the gut really influences hormonal acne. So I would love for you to break those down for everyone listening. So for the woman that's listening, that's like, okay, I think I have hormonal acne, or I've been told that I have hormonal acne, or I notice that those breakouts are happening around my cycle, like either ovulation or my menstrual phase of my cycle. How do we see the gut playing a role in this kind of hormonal acne?
One of the major ways that we see the gut influencing hormones is through the liver. So there's this gut-liver connection, gut-liver-skin connection that just can't be denied. And I think functional stool testing is so important because you need to understand if this is occurring, if this is playing a role in the acne that's taking place. So hormones like estrogen, everybody thinks about estrogen. Maybe we have like estrogen dominance and that's contributing to the acne. So somebody might run out and get a DIM supplement to bring down the estrogen. But it's helpful to see, is that really the problem? But hormones like estrogen have to go through something called phase 2 liver detoxification or biotransformation in order to be excreted by the body. So the body uses those hormones, and then once they're used up, they need to be eliminated. But they're fat soluble, so they need to be converted to a water soluble component to actually like safely leave the body. So it has to go through this process in the liver. So it goes through phase 1, liver detoxification, and then phase 2. And phase 2, estrogen has to be attached to something called glucuronic acid. So it has to hold hands with glucuronic acid in order to be basically pooped out of the body, because pooping and peeing is basically phase 3 of liver detoxification. It's the elimination phase, and it's very, very important. But in order for it to be eliminated, it has to go through that phase pathways to liver detoxification or conjugation that happens. And interestingly, bacteria in the gut, so now we're in the gut. So there's bacteria in the gut that form something called the estrobolome. There's certain bacteria that form this estrobolome. So it could be E. coli, it could be Salmonella, Pseudomonas, Streptococcus. These can form the estrobolome. And these bacteria actually secrete an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. And beta-glucuronidase, what it does is it breaks that bond between estrogen and glucuronic acid. So now estrogen can't leave the body, it's unable to leave the body, and it gets pushed back into circulation. So it goes back into the bloodstream. And so if we're seeing high beta-glucuronidase on a test, then I'm assuming that there's probably symptoms of estrogen dominance. So that could be acne, it could be painful breasts before menstruation, it could be very heavy periods and cramping.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a whole, for anyone that's interested in learning more about the gut and estrogen connection, there's a whole podcast episode on it that I did a couple weeks back. So I'll link that in the show notes for you below. And it really just is, we go a little deeper on just how much of a massive role the gut plays in our hormone health and these hormone imbalances to begin with. So yeah, when we're looking at, so what I'm hearing you say here is we've got this like estrobolome piece. And I always just say like, think of the word estrobolome as the word estrogen and then the word microbiome just put right together so you can kind of better understand it. It's literally this portion of your gut microbiome that just helps to regulate these circulating estrogen levels. So we've got that piece, and then we've got this beta-glucuronidase piece that is kind of in charge of those, how much estrogen gets excreted out and then how much estrogen is kind of put back into circulation there. So what you're saying is that piece alone can impact this hormonal acne.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have seen this addressing the beta-glucuronidase, addressing liver health, and addressing that dysbiosis, so getting rid of some of that pathogenic bacteria. I've definitely seen with clients, this makes loads of improvement in the skin.
Yeah. And then we have this like this bile piece, which obviously it plays a role here, right? Because bile is made by the liver and it binds to these toxins. It binds to this excess estrogen to help, like what you said, I mean, we just poop it out, right? So the not glamorous reality is that if you're not moving your bowels, your estrogen levels will be negatively impacted, right? And then also, I mean, when we're looking at like mold exposure, or I'd have to double check the research on this, honestly, but I'm assuming like BPA, like plastic exposure, all of this stuff. I mean, we're excreting these things out of our sweat, our stool, and our urine. So anytime we are not moving the bowels regularly, like at least once a day, we're going to run into issues here. And I think maybe you know this more than me, but I feel like when I was doing some research into this acne piece, is there a correlation between constipation and acne?
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have, constipation is going to sort of behave like almost like having high beta-glucuronidase, because you're basically not pooping out your estrogen. It's sitting in the stool, which is not going out of the body. It's sitting still in the body. And so there is going to be some recirculation, reabsorption there. And if you have both high beta-glucuronidase and constipation, that's double whammy.
Right. But that would make, I mean, that's probably common, right?
Yeah, very common. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like on the last like 5 episodes of this podcast, I've been talking about how people should not be dismissing constipation. I don't know what it is, but I'm just like, you guys, we have to take this seriously. Like so many women are going, they're using the bathroom like twice a week. And I'm just like, this is not okay. I mean, we're looking at excess estrogen. We're looking at just excess toxins in the body overall can contribute to things like acne. And then also if you're constipated, I mean, you're going to be bloated. You're going to be sluggish. You're going to be brain foggy, right? Yeah, so absolutely. It's really something that we should be taking seriously. That's not to freak anyone out, but it's just like, don't normalize it. You should be really going to the bathroom at least once a day. Yeah. Okay. So we have this like beta-glucuronidase liver gut connection that is more so at the root of a lot of this hormonal acne. What is another kind of way that the gut microbiome influences this hormonal acne? Is there a dysbiosis component to it as well? So
yes, absolutely. There is a dysbiosis component. So some of those bacteria that I described are going to secrete that beta-glucuronidase. And then there's also just other bacteria or pathogens or perhaps H. pylori, for example, that's going to influence acne. There's tons of research out there about H. pylori and skin conditions, not just acne. And one of the things that H. pylori can do, the way it survives actually, is to reduce stomach acidity, so to make it more basic. And that has so many downstream effects on digestion, nutrient absorption. So it's very much associated with all sorts of problems, just from gas, bloating, burping, belching, reflux to skin issues.
And it can be kind of tricky to find sometimes too. I mean,
Absolutely.
I know our kind of approach to it, and the H. pylori conversation, it's a big conversation in the functional health space, because it's like, do we or don't we take care of this bacteria? And we're always like, we take a lot of things into consideration when we're looking at someone's case. It's not just the test result. It's their background. It's what they're presenting with. It's also the test result. It's also their history. Did they have it previously, right? Like, we want to take all of these things into consideration when we're looking at this. But sometimes as well, especially like if someone has that chronic acne picture and they've tried the topicals and they've tried the spironolactone and they've tried the elimination diets and all of that kind of stuff, we are looking, like, our flashers are on, our high beams are on, looking for something like H. pylori because of its impact that it can have on the skin. And sometimes you can get your regular like breath test or even a stool sample at your doctor's office that can report back that you're negative for H. pylori. And then sometimes we'll catch that on more functional testing. But also, I know that we've spoken about before, sometimes it's even the functional test might miss it, but we go looking at it, especially if someone's case is kind of presenting as if they have it. So it's not super duper black and white. I will say it's kind of case dependent, which is why working with someone who's just seen a lot of this stuff is just so helpful. Yeah, there's really interesting research on H. pylori and skin conditions overall. And I know that there was a study done that really showed, I think in acne cases, a huge percentage of them had H. pylori and fungal overgrowth. Is that what it was?
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly, sort of back to your comments on testing, I often see fungal issues with acne, and fungus and H. pylori tend to kind of share the same space, or biofilms, if you will. So biofilms are kind of like shields that they hide behind. So sometimes on testing, I might see low levels of H. pylori or none at all, and I am suspicious that there might actually be H. pylori present, especially if I suspect fungal issues, because it can hide behind those fungal biofilms and be missed on testing.
So interesting and tricky. So tricky. Yes, I think in the world today where like the functional testing has gotten more commonplace, what I just really want people to understand is if you are ready to invest in the cost of functional testing, go all the way and work with someone who has seen a lot of these cases, because it is not as black and white as it might appear, right? So you might be seeing, oh, the H. pylori doesn't really look like it needs to be addressed, but then we've got this whole acne picture, and then we've got this fungal presence, and then maybe there's more H. pylori hiding that we can't quite see. Whereas someone who took one certification in how to read this test or something like that, which, like, no hate to those people, everyone has their place, but you may not be familiar of that pattern yet, or even know that is possible yet. So I think it's very helpful. If you're gonna invest in the testing itself, be ready to just like jump fully in with someone who knows the ins and outs and can kind of like read between the lines a little bit.
Absolutely. There's a lot of nuance to testing and kind of
we have learned.
Yeah, we have definitely learned that. And you really have to kind of zoom out and look at it and look at the full picture. And with skin issues, I always treat H. pylori, no question.
Yeah, exactly. And I really learned that years into this work. I mean, it wasn't, I didn't even fully understand that at the beginning. And then years in, I was like, oh, we're seeing some patterns, and I'm talking to other people who have decades of experience. And I'm like, okay, no one taught me this. This is just like learned from experience, which is just interesting. So, okay, we've got this H. pylori piece. And then what we spoke about previously as well was this like deficiency dysbiosis piece. So can this deficiency dysbiosis, just meaning like we don't have enough of our good gut bacteria, can that alone be also contributing to someone's acne?
Yeah, absolutely. So deficiency dysbiosis, or not having enough of the right types of bacteria in the gut, this can definitely be tied to skin issues, acne, eczema, as well as many other skin conditions. And you see this because when there's a lack of beneficial bacteria in the gut, especially key organisms, you know that there's going to be some sort of poor gut integrity or some sort of intestinal hyperpermeability. So the gut is permeable because it is going to let in nutrients. There's only one layer of cells that separate the lumen of the gut from the bloodstream. The lumen of the gut, our guts are just one long fire hose, open at both ends. And then there's only one layer of cells that separate the gut from the bloodstream. So there has to be a firewall there, which is a big, cushy mucosal layer. That's going to protect someone from things like inflammatory substances that are produced by bad bacteria or antigenic proteins from getting into the bloodstream. So every time you eat, the cells, that one layer of cells, kind of pull apart a little bit to let in nutrients. So that's an appropriate amount of permeability, but it's going to be more permeable, or what I like to call is hyperpermeable, if there's not a big cushy mucosal layer behind it. And we know that by looking at functional gut testing. Key bacteria that are absent or too low is going to tell us that. So that hyperpermeability triggers immune activation because things are getting into the bloodstream, and it's going to trigger systemic inflammation, and that's going to actually increase hormonal activity like insulin or androgens, and that can be tied to sebum production and acne.
So interesting. And because then there's this piece, some of these keystone strains of bacteria that help kind of support that healthy mucosal barrier might be something like Akkermansia muciniphila, right?
Absolutely.
Which we see people low in all the time. I mean, all the time we'll get test results back and there's none detectable, or there are very low levels of them, which we can go into if we want here. But what's interesting too, like when you're saying this to me, my brain is like firing thoughts together, because when we see a low Akkermansia, we'll see a weakened mucosal barrier, which really helps to reinforce that epithelial layer. But we also know that Akkermansia can also help with metabolic function and insulin sensitivity, which can then be another root cause driver of this acne as well. So it's like, it all goes together. I mean, we have to look at the gut piece.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I see a lot of my young adults or even teen clients across the board, less than DL Akkermansia muciniphila. And I don't know if it's just the diet, the sort of the diet now, modern day diets that have influenced this to an extent where you're just not seeing Akkermansia anymore, or if there's just been a lot of antibiotic usage, which has brought that down. But it's very, very common to see low or less than DL Akkermansia muciniphila in acne clients. And I'm seeing it just a lot in younger adults. And then another species that I like to look at, or that I've seen a pattern with acne, is Faecalibacterium prausnitzii. And both of these, Akkermansia as well as F. prausnitzii, are both short chain fatty acid producers. And in the literature, there's a lot there about skin conditions and low short chain fatty acids. Short chain fatty acids are so important in the gut for keeping down inflammation and for maintaining proper pH.
That's really interesting. Yeah. And for anyone that doesn't know short chain fatty acids, so essentially when our gut bacteria, when we eat things like prebiotic rich foods, so our gut bacteria, we can call those probiotics. Yes, you can take an oral probiotic, but your gut bacteria, we can consider these probiotics. So it's like you're eating these prebiotics, and then the byproduct of eating these prebiotic rich foods is these postbiotics, or these short chain fatty acids. Just for anyone that's like a new concept for. What's interesting too is we'll see lower levels of those short chain fatty acid producers in like psoriasis, right? And then also irritable bowel disease. Isn't there kind of an overlap here?
Yeah, definitely. So if I'm looking at somebody with IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, or I'm looking at the gut test of somebody with psoriasis, they're usually kind of similar.
That's interesting, because we've got this if I were to guess from what I know, in like overgrowth dysbiosis, right? So we've got these like inflammatory kind of opportunistic bacteria overgrown, and an undergrowth, or more of that deficiency dysbiosis of these supportive gut bacteria, then triggering that systemic inflammation. We've got that like heavy inflammation of the gut barrier, and then it's showing up on the skin, of course, right? Because of the fact that the immune system's like just right outside.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting how we can see these kind of patterns like overlap in clients and conditions too. So it's Is there almost any case where you would say that not looking at the gut when it comes to acne is warranted?
No, I can't think of any. I think it's so important just to have all of these pieces, all the information. I mean, it's so much. It's like looking at the beta glucuronidase, looking at, if there's dysbiosis, if there's bacteria that shouldn't be there or pathogens that shouldn't be there, if there's a fungal component, if there H. pylori is present. And then we're looking at the good bacteria, the commensal bacteria, are those nice and robust? And then we also look at steatocrit, so fat coming through, that could indicate like a fat malabsorption, which may indicate those bile flow issues. You spoke a little bit about bile flow. It's so important. Bile flow is antimicrobial, so it's going to help keep dysbiosis at bay. So if there's bile flow issues, there can be more dysbiosis. And also, if there is a problem digesting fats, then you're not going to get those fat soluble nutrients, which are so important for skin. So that's vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K, all important for skin.
And there we have it. There we have it. It's like any breakdown in the gut is then going to cause that. And this is why I feel like I also say ad nauseum on this podcast, like it's all connected. So as soon as one thing goes in the gut, like say for example, we've got the H. pylori, right? And that was just kind of an infection. Well, then that's going to impact stomach acid production. That's also going to impact bile flow. Then we're going to have a malabsorption of nutrients present. Then we're going to have an increase of inflammation, a degradation of the gut barrier, systemic inflammation. It's never just one thing. So that's not to overwhelm anyone. It's more so to also just bring to light, how powerful this work is, right? Because it's like once we really address some of this stuff, we'll see typically people feel better, like across the board, right? Like more broad spectrum. But also the fact that if you were someone that maybe was told you have SIBO, or maybe you did have H. pylori and you tried addressing these things and you're not feeling 100% better, or you're still dealing with the skin issues or whatever it might be, there's so many other pieces of the puzzle. Like the gut is an ecosystem and it really works together, right? So it's like when one of these things kind of takes a hit, it's only a matter of time before other things in the gut really start to take a hit.
Absolutely. And the other point that I'd like to make is that you don't have to have gut symptoms in order to have a problem in the gut that may be contributing to skin issues. I do have numerous clients who actually don't present with any gut symptoms, but they still have problems in the terrain of the gut microbiome and it's affecting their skin.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I had a client, oh my gosh, so early on in my career, and she had this like chronic skin rash and had been to 5 dermatologists in New York City. I mean, gotten a biopsy. It was a total nightmare. And she had also done, I'm pretty sure she was like, done every diet. I mean, poor thing, like truly every diet. I mean, AIP diet, raw vegan diet, no oil diet, whatever the heck that is, no sugar diet, no this diet, so many things. And it was really a fungal overgrowth in the gut. And so none of that was addressing it. But I bring her case up because she had this full body skin rash and it was like ruining her quality of life. Like she couldn't go to yoga anymore. She was wearing scarves. Like it was awful. She was crying. She was like totally, her quality of life was completely impacted, and the diets were not really helping, but she wasn't really complaining about her digestion. Mm-hmm. And then in hindsight, she was like, well, actually, now that we've worked on the gut piece, my bowel movements are better. My stomach, I don't get these like weird little cramps that I used to get. So it was almost like her skin was so bad that she wasn't even noticing the digestive piece, but that her digestion was really never the core issue, although she had this massive fungal overgrowth in the gut that was really causing the skin rash.
Mm-hmm. The one thing about gut work is we're not just affecting the skin, we're affecting all metabolic symptom or all metabolic health. So cleaning up the gut will really influence a person positively in many other ways, not just the skin or not just digestion. It can be energy, it can be cardiovascular, it can be all sorts of other systems.
Yeah. Yes. This is why I scream this work from the rooftops. It's because I'm like, I wish we could find people sooner before they were in like a crisis state because of the power of this work and how important it is. And I wish people would also look at the gut almost more preventatively, like kind of just as like a checkup, a check-in. Let's see what's going on here. Does everything look good? Because of how massively it impacts everything. Thyroid function, hormone balance, of course, skin health, digestive health, nutrient absorption. I mean, if there's poor nutrient absorption, like everything's going to take a hit. So yes, I wish, but that's really interesting. So you have definitely seen clients that aren't really presenting with a lot of digestive issues, but have the gut piece is really playing a role in their skin issue.
Yeah, definitely. I have a couple of younger clients who don't have digestive issues, but again, I'm seeing the classic functional stool test with the low commensals, dysbiosis, but yet they don't have digestive issues, but they do have skin issues. So it's very interesting.
That is very interesting. And then on the flip side, we will also have women come in to work with us and they have both. So they're like, I have this acne and I also have these chronic digestive issues. And I'm like, well, you're in the perfect place. We can help you with that. However, they're like, I want to make sure it's like, which one's worse? And then sometimes there's this hesitancy because they're like, well, I want to make sure that we actually address my skin, or I want to make sure we actually address my digestion. But our whole kind of process and methodology is both, right? It's like, it's addressing the gut to then see those impacts on the skin. So just for anyone, it's making me think of the conversations that I've had with people and they're like, well, my skin's bad, but my digestion's really bad. They're like, if anything, I want to work on that. And I'm like, well, it's all connected. So we're going to work on both kind of as a baseline. We're going to address both.
Yeah.
So we talked about this deficiency dysbiosis, also this kind of more infection piece with the H. pylori. We talked about digestive secretions a bit with the stomach acid and bile flow. And then we talked about this like beta-glucuronidase liver gut connection. And these are all the kind of many different ways in which the gut will pretty directly influence hormonal acne patterns. One other thing that you mentioned to me kind of before we hit record was that you'll see, even in testing, you can see someone whose hormone levels look normal, right? But the gut is kind of playing a role. Can you explain that to us?
So if somebody comes and wants to do hormone testing, or they've had hormone testing done and everything looks normal with regard to the hormones, it is a good idea to go deeper and look at the gut, because you can present with some of the things that we talked about, the high beta glucuronidase, without seeing that abnormality on a hormone test.
Yes, because people ask us a lot, do we run hormone panels? And we do, but we really never start with like a Dutch test. And we also never really start with like a blood serum hormone panel either. And we can do both of those things, but it's like, if we haven't looked at the gut piece yet, we should still start there. And then maybe also the mineral piece and like blood sugar piece kind of would be more of a starting point. And then potentially bringing in more like functional hormone testing a couple months down the line. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. My order of operations is always start with the foundations first. So getting blood sugar balance, because that's going to affect hormones like insulin, doing the minerals, because that will affect all the hormones, having repleting minerals, making sure that's in place, nutrient repletion, and then the gut, and looking at what's going on in the gut, because there can be so much going on in the gut, and the gut can be the foundation for so many things that I like to start there. That's sort of my package of where I start. And then if things aren't getting better, or we still suspect that there might be a hormonal issue that needs to be adjusted, then we can do hormonal testing. But I do think starting with the gut makes sense.
Do you see a lot of people get a lot better with just that and not even need the hormone piece?
Yes. I hardly do any Dutch tests these days. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like in this functional space, it's like Dutch test, which like it's fine and it can be very helpful and beneficial for some. But I'm constantly getting the question, and I'm like, we probably run like 3 a year. We probably literally order like 3 Dutch tests like all year long, whereas we order, I don't know, 100 plus stool tests. I mean, probably like 200 stool tests a year, and then also HTMAs and more so like mineral panels, and then also just that foundational work, the blood sugar work, the adrenal support, the stress management, the nervous system, and then digging into that gut piece. That's what I find a much better place for people to start as well. We are big fans of eating enough protein over here on Team Han. Protein is essential for muscle repair, a strong gut lining, balanced blood sugar levels, and so much more. For most of our clients, we like recommending around 100 grams of protein per day to start, and adding in a good quality protein powder can be super helpful for hitting those numbers. It's an easy add-in. You can throw it into a smoothie or even add it to oatmeal. Choosing the right protein powder can feel so overwhelming. Half of them are full of fillers and crap ingredients, and the other half, honestly, just taste bad. Equip Protein is one of my go-to recommendations for our clients and one of my personal favorites. We love it because it only has a small handful of ingredients. It's 100% carefully sourced, real foods, no additives, allergens, chemicals, fillers, or other junk. It's gluten-free, and it contains 21 grams of protein per serving. Equip's Prime Protein also offers a complete amino acid profile. It's also independently tested to make sure that the protein powder is free of harmful amounts of heavy metals and toxins like glyphosate, which is honestly super hard to find. Equip Prime Protein is a grass-fed beef protein. So it is animal-based, but it's dairy-free, unlike whey or casein protein powders. Grass-fed beef protein is packed with collagen, gelatin, and micronutrients that your body needs. We also see that it's typically much better tolerated in our clients with chronic gut and digestive issues over something like a plant-based protein powder. In addition, some of their flavors do contain natural flavors, but they're distilled vapors from natural and organic compounds or fruits like vanilla, coconut, and strawberry, and are processed without any chemicals, fillers, binders, or artificial ingredients, which once again is incredibly hard to find. Personally, I buy both the chocolate and the vanilla flavors of the Equip Prime Protein, but honestly, they have like so many other incredible flavors out now. If you're interested in trying out Equip Prime Protein, you can use the code Hannah Aylward HHC at checkout for 15% off, and we'll pop that code in the show notes of this episode for you as well. So once again, you can go to equipfoods.com, choose the flavor of protein powder that you want, and then use code Hannah Aylward HHC for 15% off. So one other question, because I think this is going to apply to a lot of people listening. So for the person that says, I'm already eating clean, because this is what we hear a lot. And we'll hear this with both digestive issues and skin issues. Like, how are you guys different? And B, I'm already eating clean. I took out gluten. I took out dairy. I took out sugar. I changed all my topicals, my serums and my moisturizers and all of that. I've been working on things to support my skin barrier, but I'm still dealing with this acne. What would you say to that client?
Then I think gut testing all the way. That's the next step in the journey. If you've done some of the food foundations, you've taken out some of the possible antigenic foods that are causing maybe a little bit of inflammation, but you're not moving the needle at all, then there's probably something going on in the gut. Typically with acne, at least, it's H. pylori, it's candida, it's parasites. Those are the three most common things that I see on a gut test with acne.
Yeah, and then that's all contributing to poor nutrient absorption, inflammation, immune system activation, quote unquote leaky gut, right? Everyone talks about leaky gut, but I always say leaky gut is not really the issue just on its own. There's always other things contributing to the leaky gut, which has to be addressed, and which is also why so many people, there's like a big kind of functional medicine doctor push where it's like, oh, we'll get you on a leaky gut protocol, and it's just like L-glutamine and probiotics. But, you know, as Marley was saying, if you have H. pylori, if you have parasites, if you have a lot of this dysbiosis or fungal overgrowth, those things are not addressing that, right? So that should help anyone that's listening who feels like I'm at my freaking wit's end and nothing is working. That should help you feel better, right? Because it's not that you're broken, and it's not that like you have tried everything. And I know people put so much effort into figuring out their health issues, and I have so much compassion for all of these people, and I've been through that myself. And with that being said, we just have to take a different approach. Like, you just need the right strategy, and you just need someone to dig a little deeper. So never lose hope or think that you have tried it all. We can usually get in there and find a lot of holes in the plan and dig a little deeper to kind of get some better answers and further explain why something like the acne is presenting that maybe wasn't caught before. Okay, beautiful. So just a quick kind of, I know you talked about it a little bit, but for the person who's like, okay, this sounds cool. What exactly is your process? You mentioned foundational stuff, minerals, all of that, but can you do just like a brief overview of what someone could expect if they were like, cool, I want to work with you guys to like get to the bottom of my acne? What process are you walking them through?
Yeah, so the first session with somebody is really laying down the foundations. So that might be the blood sugar balancing, seeing if adrenals are supported, if there's high stress, what sleep is like. I mean, these are all sort of foundational principles. And then the client will do a gut test. then we'll get those results back. And then we'll go through that with a fine tooth comb. They'll really understand what their results are and what they mean. I think a lot of practitioners kind of zip through the functional stool test. And so then the client doesn't really understand what's going on. They think that they might have this, but I take a lot of time to go through it and have the client understand, okay, this is what we're going to do about it. These are the things that we're going to do that are going to push your body into balance, back into balance is what we're going for. And we're going to shift and change the gut microbiome. And so every time we meet, we're sort of focusing on 2 or 3 things at a time. We can't do everything in one protocol or one session. So we kind of focus on 2 or 3 things to shift and change that gut microbiome every time we're meeting until the skin gets back into balance.
And then you're also kind of layering in that topical support piece as well, right?
Yes, correct. So I do have topical recommendations. I know some people are very attached to their topicals or it's scary, but I have a lot of different options for people and I talk them through it and why I like them. And so that's a conversation that we can have as well.
And then when you're recommending these topicals, what are you kind of emphasizing? Like skin barrier support, any like anti-inflammatory support, or what are kind of like the key things you're looking to do with those topicals?
Yeah. So definitely preserving the skin barrier because we're thinking about, okay, there's probably some hyperpermeability of the gut. There's probably some hyperpermeability of the skin as well, for those epithelial cells. And then I'm also thinking about, it sort of depends on what the skin condition is, but I'm also thinking about microbial support on the skin. There has been some recent research about the bacteria that is supposedly causes acne, that it's more about different types of that bacteria, different halotypes, that it's more like a dysbiosis. So they're seeing not necessarily more of that bacteria, but different types, whereby there are more pathogenic types rather than beneficial types. So it's almost like a dysbiosis of the skin. So I try to pay attention to that as much as possible. So it's sort of like a skin protocol that's much like the gut protocol, where we're trying to restore microbial balance to the skin, not kill everything off, but support the good skin microbes.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And it's like leaky gut equals like leaky skin barrier, That's really interesting to me. And I feel like nowadays people use so many products. I'm always asking you, I'm like, what do you use? And you're like, nothing. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how are you doing this? How does your skin look like this with such a simple routine? So it's like now in today's world, there's like 13-step like skin protocols. Do you see that causing more damage than good?
Yeah, I think it can be a little bit overkill. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And, the more products that you use, the more chance that you're having fillers and preservatives and things like that. And those things are getting in through the skin. And now we know a lot more about, we used to think that if you put something on the skin, it wouldn't go into the bloodstream. But now we're seeing, no, that's actually incorrect. It does go into the bloodstream. So the chances are, if you're using many, many products, you're getting a lot more of those potentially estrogenic compounds. We'll go back to hormones, but estrogenic in the preservatives and fillers.
It's just like more toxin exposure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I believe there's research to show that women get more exposure to toxins just through like skincare and hair products, whether it's like highlights or even, I hate to say it, but like Botox, like what's going on there, And then we have like topical stuff, serums, body lotions, makeup, all of that kind of stuff. Then we add in just like tampons and all of that. There's so many more products that women use than men typically. So it's just like more opportunity for exposure to like endocrine disruptors,
Exactly.
which that is something to consider. And then like plastics and all of that, but we don't need to get into that.
A whole other episode.
I know. And then there's like heavy metals and sometimes that comes up, but for the purposes of this episode, we won't take it there. Okay, beautiful. So I think this is likely very helpful for the person listening who's like, I've had the acne, I've tried all the things, what the heck's going on and how do I get better? Is there anything else that you want to leave the audience with when it comes to the gut hormone connection or anyone that's just like really struggling with chronic acne?
Skin conditions are very difficult. This is how you present to the world, your skin, this is how people see you. And so it can be a lot. Working on the gut is, it's not a fast process. It's not like putting a steroid on and then 3 hours later, the skin looks less inflamed. But we do typically see improvement with every protocol that we do. So it's important to have some patience, but know that the work that we're doing, this is going to last. It's not like a steroid where it's going to just come back after you take it away.
Great point. Yeah, it's well worth it in the end. It's like more work at the beginning and well worth it in the end, which also anything that's worth it is that, right? So it's like whether you're like working to build a strong relationship or like a strong marriage, it's always more work for like more reward at the end than just jumping into something and then it comes right back and you have to like deal with it again. So to me, I'm like anything that's truly worth it is a bit more of that more intentional work and then it pays out with dividends at the end. Beautiful. So thanks for coming on the episode today. And for anyone else, if this episode really hit home and you're interested in learning more and you're ready to really learn exactly how to restore your gut for clear and glowing skin, you can join us in a free masterclass that we will be teaching. And it's going to be out on November 12th at 12:30 p.m. And I'll really be walking you through a bit more in detail of like our step-by-step process. We will be going into more education about how the gut impacts acne along with other skin conditions. And then, kind of a bit more of expansion on our process and what it would look like to work with us and all of that good stuff. So for anyone that's interested in really learning our step-by-step process to really getting and achieving this clear glowing skin, we would love to have you in next week's masterclass. And I'll make sure to put the link to join that masterclass in the show notes below. Thanks so much for being on the episode today, Marley.
Thanks for having me. It was so fun.